I shot the 44 Magnum, and I said, this ain't going to work for me. I don't know how Clint Eastwood could hold it out there with one hand and put 6 in the bullseye.
I'm Riveroo Bay, and welcome to my gun kingdom.
You see a lot of divorces now, and the mother's home by themselves, raising a couple kids. And if she's sleeping upstairs, and let's say she hears noise downstairs, and she knows it's not their kids, she hears glass breaking, well, the first thing she wants to do is she wants to get on the phone and call 911, make that emergency call. If she has a handgun, the best thing for her to do, especially, let's say, if everybody was sleeping upstairs, was just take cover and at a position where they can see the perpetrator that entered walk up the stairways. What you want to do is try to narrow down your kill zone as much as possible.
So don't go search for the intruder.
Don't search. Okay. Let him come to you. Let him worry about what's going on. And if he never comes upstairs, then just don't go down there and just wait for the police to show up.
And you got help on the way because
you got help on the way.
Right.
But what you want to do is that most of the time you're not going to have that time for sight alignment, everything they taught us in the academy, and it's going to be an impulse shot. In Detroit, we had 2 sets of scoring. We would qualify with our handguns twice a year. One was a combat course, and the other was a scoring course. And the combat was probably more valuable than the scoring, because basically it's impulse shooting, and what they taught us to do is point your finger at a flower pot or whatever you want to target. And if you can point to it, just imagine having a gun in there in your hand and fire at that. Fire twice, pause, evaluate the situation, and fire twice again. But always save at least 2 rounds in the cylinder.
Okay.
I mean, usually at that point, you're gonna need 2 shots and that's it.
So you like follow-up shots?
Follow-up shots, yep. Yes. And if the person has some distance between you, say 50 feet, well, he's at 50 feet. If he doesn't have a weapon, he can't harm you. So let him get closer. The closer he gets to you. Mind you, I'm not talking about a foot from you.
Right.
The closer he gets to you, say
10 feet.
4 foot.
Say 10.
Your odds of missing are gonna, depending on the layout of your home. If you had 3 bedrooms down and you had Johnny in one room and Sally in the other, and then yourself, you would have to, and it comes off of one hallway. Well, you got to keep the vision on that hallway if that person comes down, and if he comes down that hallway. Don't say nothing. Just shoot. Just shoot. Don't say freeze. Don't play Hollywood police or anything.
Gotcha. Yeah. Right.
He gets close, and if he looks like he's going into one of those rooms, you fire right away.
2 shots.
2 shots. And if he bypasses those doors, let him come, because the closer he gets to you, the better shot you're going to have if you have to shoot. And the stuff about if you don't have a handgun, if you don't have any home protection, then you start throwing things at them and screaming. Make a lot of noise. Throw objects through windows. You got to do something to draw attention to your house. And the reason why I like a revolver versus an automatic is that you don't have to worry about loading a magazine, or in a panic situation, if you're taking the safety off and all of a sudden you hit the magazine release, there's a lot of problems you can have in a panic situation. Whereas a 38, you're not going to have to deal with that, or a revolver, you're just going to have to pull the trigger. Most revolvers are double action. All the new revolvers are double action, so you just have to point and aim. So that becomes a that's what I look at. I don't want to worry about a bullet, where it's going to go in case I miss the target. And so that's why I prefer a small handgun, small caliber handgun.
Now, what type of ammunition would you prefer with that?
Well, if I'm going to use it for home protection, I'd probably go with maybe a plus P hollow point and load it. Fire a few of these weapons and get the right one that's comfortable for you if you feel confident.
That's a really good point. I think a lot of people buy a handgun or any kind of gun based on what their buddies bought.
Well, that's just it. Yeah.
And I ran into a guy the other day, and I was talking to him, and he was saying, "Hey, I'm going to go out and buy a handgun. I'm going to get a Glock 9mm." And I asked him, I said, "Well, why are you going to get a Glock 9mm?" He said, "Well, that's what my buddy bought. He likes it." But wouldn't it be advisable to like test out a 40, 45, and a 9mm? You know, or a 38 also, right? Test them. And go to a store that you can
shoot them into a silhouette, fire them into a silhouette. And after you test fire each one of these guns, when I say test fire, maybe 3 rounds through them, look at your pattern. And if one particular gun stands out, that tells me that...
So look at the grouping.
Look at your grouping.
So fire 5 at least of each.
At least 5. Whatever, whatever the dealer...
Every handgun.
Yep. Whatever the gun dealer will, let you shoot. But just because your neighbor says, I would get a 357 Magnum. That's what you want. Kill anything, draw it out. It's not. It doesn't work that way.
I'm sure you've encountered people that have been high on drugs and things like that. How would a 9mm compare to a 40, let's say?
Oh God, unless again, it's going to be the user, depending where you shoot the person. But you could put a bullet through the shoulder, and the person could keep momentum coming at you
with a 9mm.
With a 9mm, he's not going to lose his balance, and. But not in all cases, I'm just saying generally
depending where you
depending where you hit him and everything. But with that 45 or the 40 caliber, you hit him in the leg or not, you're going to knock him down.
Yeah, or in
hit
the
him in the shoulder, you're going to knock him down.
Exactly.
You're going to knock him off balance.
Right.
And that could save your life.
And it's just because of the ballistics.
Yeah. Yeah.
The 9mm is a faster bullet and it's a smaller bullet. Mm-hmm. Where the 40 and the 45, it moves so slow that it produces more knockdown power.
Yeah, and they're all great weapons. Like I said, they all have their place. Like in the military or something, you may want that 9mm. You may want to shoot through a door or a window, or and so it may have that. But
what about home protection with a 9mm?
Well, again, you're going to have to worry about where that bullet's going to go through.
I think too, recoil is a big thing with people, and 9mm. If that's the only thing that you're going to be comfortable with, it's better than nothing, right? Mm-hmm. But you're going to have to get a hollow point for home protection, and practice at the range at least every month, a couple times. I even suggest 2-3 times a week.
Well, it's just like. It's just like some of the videos I saw that you have on when you're shooting the M4, I think it was.
Yeah. Yep.
That rifle never moved.
Right.
I mean, you pop, 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 pop. It never moved. No recoil.
Right.
That's what makes those weapons so effective in a combat situation.
And what about what's nice about the 223 round is that once it penetrates the first wall, it starts to yaw. Goes sideways or starts to tumble. So it's less likely to over-penetrate in a home environment and go through multiple walls, say like a 9mm. And that's why I prefer, and this is what I'm comfortable with. Okay, not everybody's going to be comfortable with this, but I actually sleep with that Colt M4 next to me.
A weapon is only as good as the handler.
Exactly.
And that's the whole situation.
That's a good point.
And there's not a perfect weapon.
Right. It's what's perfect for you, right?
What's perfect for you.
Right.
what you like and what I like and what your buddies like, everything is different.
Yeah.
And a lot has to do with confidence. Confidence, with that weapon in your hand.
Well, it takes a lot of practice.
For a non-police person, you have to be aware of your surroundings. Look at the cars that are parked on the street. Kind of memorize, get familiar with the cars. When you see a different car parked on the street, look at it and keep an eye on it and look for suspicious activity. Something out of the normal. And you just kind of watch and see who belongs and who don't belong, basically. And I'm not saying for you to call the police every time you see something out of the, yeah, but just be aware of what's going on in case something does happen. You might be able to supply some information. Well, yeah, I've seen that car there parked for a couple of days, but I just assumed it was whoever, a friend of a friend or something like that. So, don't walk in a fog.
Right.
Be aware of what you're doing. Look at someone. If he looks kind of suspicious, just say hi to him and see what kind of reaction you get from him.
A lot of people out there, our viewers, are probably concerned about, if they have young kids in the home. Mm-hmm. Where is the best place that you recommend people store these handguns or whatever they use for a home defense weapon so that it doesn't get into the wrong hands?
Well, that's a problem. If you're, in your bedroom would be the best place to store it. When you go to bed at night, maybe take it out of a safe. But what's the sense of having a weapon for home defense if you have to lock it up in the safe? Because if and when you need that chance, crimes occur in the daytime. It's just not night.
Danny, what is the first line of defense someone should have in a home environment?
A well-charged phone.
Okay, good point.
Yeah.
I say a good guardian dog, like a German Shepherd,
oh, yes.
Rottweiler,
well, any dog,
whatever.
Any dog that will bark.
Yeah.
Any dog that will bark.
Because that's going to scare away intruders too, right?
Well, yeah. It's funny that most people, professional burglars, they know the house prior to breaking into it. They know who belongs.
That's where we come back to situational awareness.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
They know who's inside, who's not, who belongs.
Is there someone casing your house?
Lights on and everything. Like we used to have in the wintertime, we had a bunch of home burglaries. And it was a couple guys walking around with snow shovels in the wintertime knocking on doors.
Oh,
can we shovel your snow? And if no one answered the door, they'd walk around the back and break in. And this is daylight. You have to educate your kids. Maybe take that. Say if it's a revolver, sit the kids down. I'm talking about kids maybe 8 or 9 years old when they at that curious age, and unload it. Let them hold it. Let them feel it, and explain to them that this is a weapon. It's not a toy. It's not something to show your friends. But if you never expose your children to that weapon and explain to them what it's for, they're going to be inquisitive and they're going to want to go in there when you're gone and pull it out, take it to school and show their buddies and all this stuff. So the best thing to do, I think, was to educate them. And it's a thin line. I would never have a trigger guard on my revolver or automatic or something like this because I don't want to. I live alone, so it's easier. But I have grandkids, and when they come over, I secure my weapon. I put it away, and I tell the kids they're not allowed to go in this closet. And they understood. They knew I was a policeman, and they understood. So I never had problems like that. So big thing is educate the younger kids in the home.
Okay.
To let them know and let them get comfortable with it.
I know when I was a young boy growing up, my parents we would go over scenarios that could happen and be prepared. So, what would you recommend for people to do to, sit down as a family and discuss if something would happen during the night or during the day? This is what we're going to do. But let's say that someone breaks into the house and the bedrooms are pretty close to each other. Would you tell the kids to go in the closet? Would you tell them to get under the bed? Because we're thinking about, like, if they choose a handgun or a rifle that would have overpenetration going into walls and continuing through the next wall. What's the plan
If
of
they could run
action?
under the bed, I would go under the bed because people can't shoot into closed closets,
Okay.
closed doors.
What
So,
would be the signal that you would give? How could you prepare the family by a certain signal that you could give them?
well, you would have to sit down and you would have to discuss it with your kids and say, "This is what we're going to do at this situation. If you hear me say this, have a trigger word and do it." But
But sometimes it takes, 10, 15 minutes for the police to respond, depending if you live in an urban area as
yes,
opposed to a rural area.
yes, and the big thing is primarily is going to be safety. If you're alone, you only have to worry about yourself. If there's kids, you have to worry about them. And that's why when we were talking earlier, the main thing is have a fully charged cell phone and get the police rolling. First thing off the bat, get the police rolling
Good point.
and get them coming. And then you,
Don't try to take care of the situation yourself.
oh no. If you choose to buy a weapon for home protection, make sure you go to an established gun dealer, gun business that's been in business a long time, that have adequate people behind the counter that's been working there a number of years that really know about handguns. And don't be afraid to ask them questions and see if you can fire a weapon or two before you decide on what you're going to get. Because whenever you pick that weapon up, and if you discharge it, they may come after you for liability issues or even criminal. So, but the main thing is what I would suggest would be just be aware of your surroundings and